Hey guys, it's Titan here, and welcome back to Codex Review. Today we'll be covering XCOM Enemy Unknown. Released back in 2012, it's a modern remake of the 1994 UFO Enemy Unknown and a reboot of the 1990 XCOM franchise. XCOM is a turn-based strategy title with a much greater emphasis placed on the tactical level of play when compared to other major strategy titles like Civilization, which has a much greater focus on the macro level of play. True to its origin, XCOM is punishingly difficult, in a way that many gamers who are used to the more modern casual level of play will be unprepared for. Though it takes a unique approach by giving the player the freedom to tailor the game experience to their own unique needs and preferences, but for the true hardcore fans of this franchise, there's only one way to play: on the impossible difficulty with damage roulette and Iron Man mode enabled. This combination gives you the hardest possible gameplay with the biggest randomization of outcomes and no possibility of save scumming. However, for the more casual player, there are a lot of options for you here. Playing the game on the normal difficulty poses a challenge, but not an insurmountable one, and without Iron Man mode enabled, you can always revert to a previous autosave to avoid the punishing consequences that come with making a bad call. Don't feel bad. Save scumming is a way of life for many XCOM players. It's also the best approach for your first introduction to the franchise. There is in many ways a perfect balance here, because the developers have gone to great lengths to ensure that the punishingly difficult aspects of XCOM have remained intact, while also creating an approachable and enjoyable experience for the casual player base as well. This is a true testament to the forethought that went into the production of this game. In comparison, other difficult titles like Dark Souls don't even try to include the casual player base. The argument concerning Dark Souls often revolves around the argument of the barrier of entry being designed to exclude the casuals in order to appeal to the hardcore crowd. But when you take a good hard look at XCOM, it's still widely perceived as a punishing and difficult strategy title that appeals to some of the most hardcore players, and yet it's managed to include that separate and opposing casual player base. Similarly, the story also appeals to many different types of players. The overarching story does set an interesting narrative, and though it can be sparse at times, it's still interesting and not very intrusive for those replaying the game many times. But for those fascinated by the details of the world, there is so much lore to dive into, from the information you learn while conducting research, to what you learn while encountering aliens, and most importantly, through the world building. That world building may very well be one of the greatest aspects of XCOM. The environments are amazing and can fill you with fear or even awe at times. The aliens are so foreign and powerful that the appearance of some of the most dangerous of them, such as the cyber discs, will make you stop in fear, and no matter how many steps forward you take, it will always feel like the aliens are just a few more steps ahead of you. All the varying aspects of XCOM work so well together and add up to one of the most amazing strategy experiences in modern times. Some of these aspects are also heavily intertwined, such as the story and the gameplay. Separating them would make each lose something critical to their accomplishments and nuances, so for this review, we'll be discussing them together. XCOM also received a large content expansion called Enemy Within that adds so much content to the game that it may as well be a different game. So for the purposes of this review, we'll be discussing XCOM Enemy Unknown as if it also includes all of the content from the expansion. So let's just jump right into it. Earth is under attack from a highly advanced extraterrestrial and unknown enemy. So the nations of Earth band together and create the XCOM Project, an organization dedicated to fighting the alien invaders and conducting research and development of alien tech to enable huge strides in human technology. You are the commander, the fearless, voiceless, faceless leader of this initiative, upon which rests the fate of the world. At your side, and always supporting your efforts against the Xeno filth, is Central, who acts as the XO of the XCOM project, and often confers with your chief engineer, Dr. Shen, and your chief scientist, Dr. Valen. With the XCOM project in full swing, your first introduction to the Xenos is in the tutorial mission, and while tutorials are normally intended to teach the player about the basics of gameplay mechanics, in this case, it's so much more. The tutorial will teach you the basics of gameplay, but also introduce you to the hardest and most important lessons of XCOM, while also including story elements that are built on top of the world building. You first find yourself landing at the site of the first Xeno attack, and as your troops move off the transport, you immediately notice the destruction surrounding you. What was once a great city, a symbol of humanity, now lies in ruin and appears deserted. As you slowly move your troops closer and closer to your first encounter with the Xenos, your troops begin to discover small signs of the alien presence. Along the way, you learn the importance of cover and moving your troops tactically across the battlefield. A skill so valuable, it cannot be understated. With no prior knowledge of the new alien threat, you have no idea what to expect. And then finally, it happens. You encounter what appears to be a human soldier, so one of your troops advances to investigate, and just as you begin to sense that something is wrong, it's already too late. You couldn't have avoided it. The soldier was being mind controlled, something you couldn't have possibly expected. This is your first harsh lesson. You will encounter threats you cannot possibly expect to understand. You had no choice, and in simply following the steps laid out before you, your very first soldier loses their life, before they even fired their first shot. In this moment, you are delivered your second and possibly most important lesson. Death is cruel, and it will haunt your soldiers in every step they take, every single move they make. Death is inevitable, and with the strength of this new unknown threat brings, it is a constant. Before you even know what is happening or the true danger of the encounter, you learn your final lesson. The Xeno threat is greater than you could ever imagine. As your soldiers miss shot after shot, you find yourself outmatched. Your human tech is no match, and you quickly realize the strength of the Xenos as the alien delivers shot after shot from their strange plasma weaponry, each finding its mark. This mission is a painful lesson in XCOM. Only a single soldier will make it home tonight, out of a team that arrived with 4. This tutorial mission may very well be one of the greatest in modern gaming, in a way that is unexpected. Tutorials are often a painful but necessary experience. Often they feel out of place as you push through them simply to learn the mechanics or controls and actually begin the experience of the game. XCOM leans into this undeniable reality by delivering an expertly crafted tutorial, making the painful tutorial a painful lesson. In a single experience, the developers achieve effective storytelling, world building, mechanics introduction, and most importantly, teach you about the inevitable truths and themes that make up the XCOM experience. As you conduct research and make advancements, you will slowly go from being entirely unprepared to at least having the slightest chance of overcoming the Xenos. With each successful mission, every research project, each new facility, and every kill your troops score, you move one step closer to leveling the playing field. Eventually, as you continue to tech up, you'll find yourself with many capable warriors equipped with lasers or even plasma-based weaponry and advanced armor based on alien technology. Before you know it, you may start to feel as though you've gained a foothold, and you may actually begin to convince yourself that you have a fighting chance. The thing is that every time XCOM gives you something, it sees fit to take something else away from you. Just as you begin to think you have a handle on the situation, you are introduced to Exalt, a radicalized human organization with a love for the aliens that seeks to topple XCOM and pave the way for the alien invasion. Before you even know much of anything else about them, you will discover they are sabotaging your attempts to fight back. From corrupting your research data to stealing your cash reserves, they stab at you from the shadows, leaving you little recourse. In tandem with this new enemy within, you will find that the alien threat has seen fit to make their own technological advancements. Every time you take a step forward, so do your enemies. For every new breakthrough, you will see increased alien armor, new alien armor types, Exalt troops incorporating alien DNA into their own, advancements in Exalt weaponry, and so on. So you find yourself in an endless race, trying your best to make that next step to keep yourself in the game before the board is swept clean. Each country has its own panic level, up to a maximum of 5. If the panic of a nation gets too high, then it will withdraw from the XCOM project. This is where the Doom tracker comes into play, and it is exactly as ominous as it sounds. If a total of 8 countries withdraw from XCOM, then the project fails and the game is over. This may sound like a manageable task, but you are outmatched and unprepared. You will be faced with many simultaneous invasions, of which you have enough resources to respond to only one. These are the kinds of hard choices you will be forced to make on many occasions, on the macro and micro level of play. You may have to choose to sacrifice one country in order to respond to and save another, or sacrifice one soldier on the battlefield to secure victory. These sacrifices are painful. With the immense amount of customization you can give to your troops, each time you watch one die, it is a punishingly somber experience. You can change their name, their face, voice, armor, weapons, armor color, and even award them medals for their performances on the battlefield, each with its own unique benefits. Alternatively, countries provide funding, engineers, scientists, and bonuses for maintaining coverage over an entire continent or even a region. Losing one of them is a big hit and makes pushing back the aliens a great deal harder. Once you gain a solid foundation, you can begin to make the real leaps and focus on the higher level of strategy. You can launch satellites into orbit over different nations of Earth to give yourself increased monthly funding and a wider detection net for alien UFOs. This increases your need for aircraft to intercept alien UFOs, which can be devastating if left unchecked. You will need a great many new aircraft and tech to keep yourself in the air game. The Firestorm is a new type of aircraft based on a blending of human and alien technology, with vastly improved capabilities. Paired with advances in air-to-air weaponry, your Air Force begins to maintain a strong level of control over the skies. With the construction of new facilities and new research, you start making huge leaps that may have seemed entirely out of reach for humanity. Using a new alien substance called MELD that you recover on the battlefield, your capabilities are revolutionized. You can begin to augment troops with cybernetics and modify the DNA of troops to include alien DNA. Augmented troops can now be deployed to the battlefield, controlling mechs equipped with heavy weaponry, and they are truly an imposing sight to be seen. Genetically modified soldiers are equipped with the benefits of the alien genome. From secondary hearts to better eyes to legs that allow you to leap tall buildings, these soldiers are much more dangerous with their new host of game-changing modifications. Eventually, you can even begin to tap into the psionic potential of your own soldiers. This once legendary power that the aliens have been using against you is now just another weapon that you can wield to rise up and fight back. In XCOM, the story is delivered through occasional cutscenes, but the majority of story elements are provided from research reports you can read once you've completed new research, voiceovers you get in the base and on the battlefield as you encounter new threats or technologies, and from the behavior of the aliens themselves. There is a huge strength in world building in nearly each and every mission. Every time you arrive to a terror site, you find alien forces slaughtering civilians en masse to destabilize nations. When your forces arrive, you're in a race to rescue as many civilians as you can, while the aliens at times bypass you to kill as many civilians as possible. The more you save, the more you will reduce panic in the region. Not only are these kinds of missions important, but they give you a lot of insight to the aliens and their methodology. There is actually a lot of mission variety here, even outside of the randomization of layouts, map types, and enemies. Abduction sites appear 3 at a time, which forces you to only respond to a single one, and can vary wildly. UFO crash sites and landing sites allow you to learn about the alien designs while also securing a lot of alien materials. Council missions are requests made directly by the secretive council at the political and international levels that directs XCOM. They vary wildly from objectives to locations and provide cash rewards, giving your operations a serious boost. Finally, there are covert ops, which are missions you launch to disrupt Exalt. These are very different from the rest, as you send a single covert operative with no armor and only a pistol to conduct sabotage and espionage, but sadly, they always end in the same repetitive loop. Your operative is discovered, so you must rush a response. You will either hack or defend nodes on the map to gain intel on Exalt operations and destroy cells. You will spend the majority of your time on these missions. The strategy here is by far the best part of XCOM. Soldiers have their own classes, such as the snipers, that are all about high damage and long range, but are not great at repositioning, or the heavy, which is equipped with an LMG and packed to the brim with explosives, from the rocket launchers to the grenades, which are massively important because they deliver consistent damage, unlike the range of damage of conventional weapons. As soldiers rank up, you can choose which abilities you want to invest in, and this can dramatically change the way a class is utilized. The sniper could be made to be a dangerously accurate weapon, but unable to fire after moving, or with the trade-off of damage and accuracy, you can fire your sniper after moving. There are so many of these tiny decisions, from abilities and weapons to armor and items. The range for strategy is huge, and there is nuance in every single choice. Everything has a purpose, and there are times for every single tool in the toolbox to shine. Medkits are hugely important for your supports to have if you want to treat wounded soldiers in a mission or prevent others from dying. Or mimics can be used to attract enemies when it's most needed. Some armors even have abilities such as a built-in grappling hook that can get your troops to unreachable nooks or scale buildings without having to run around looking for a ladder. I could talk for hours about everything packed in here, but we certainly don't have time for that, and really, half the fun is in discovering new tech for the first time. All of these tools give you a huge range, and how you assemble your team can equip you to face many different types of threats. Strategy is so deep that to even attempt to discuss it in detail is very difficult for XCOM, but there is a single golden rule that can bring you victory. Patience and caution will always win the day. To combat this, the developers try to include time pressures, such as the meld canisters self-destructing after an allotted amount of turns, or civilians dying off before you can rescue them. But ultimately, if you rush through a map without making appropriate use of cover or allowing your troops to move too far apart, you will end up losing soldiers, and in the worst case, watching your entire squad die. It is always worth it in the long run to move slowly and cautiously by ensuring that your troops are always positioned strategically, allowing them to make full use of their toolkit and support one another. Every aspect of the experience is designed to fit nicely into the puzzle, and each complements one another. Sound and music is no exception here, sound especially. Every time you hear a weapon fire, it is satisfying. Conventional weapons sound like guns firing bullets. Lasers sound exactly as you would expect, maybe even better. Explosives sound punishing and dangerous. Alien weapons and abilities are a great standout as well. Alien tech all sounds completely foreign and ominous, giving you the sense that you are encountering something unlike any human has ever experienced before. Sound is often a difficult topic to cover because it's very ethereal, and really, you could spend a month listening to someone talk about what something sounds like, but the experience of hearing it yourself is completely different. So instead of me talking about the sound, let's just take a moment to listen to it.
To assault the alien craft. Enemies in sight.
Music, on the other hand, while fitting in many ways, may be the weakest element of XCOM. At times, I think it's because everything is just so good that average music doesn't stand out or leave an impression. But at other times, I find myself really questioning the role of music in a game. I think the approach the designers went with on this one was to use music as more of a supporting role for the already strong world building. The problem for me is that music often doesn't sound like music. It sounds a lot more like ambient sound effects. In very few moments of the experience did I even notice anything that resembles music in the background, and it never perfectly fit or evoked an amazing feeling in me. That said, because a majority of it is ambient sound, and very fitting ambient sound for the most part, the ambiance is really the only part of the music aspect of the game that is good. It supports the world building and immersion of the game quite well, and it often fills you with an ominous feeling or a sense of dread, which really suits the experience. Though I often find myself forgetting that it's even there. At best, it's really just average. I'm writing this review years after the game has been released, patched, and polished, and even received DLC. I think that's something that's important to keep in mind here, because oftentimes, with many games, people will criticize a new release because of post-launch bugs, without taking into account the strain on developers. And while at times the criticisms are valid, more often than not, people will disregard the entire experience because of a few bugs. But in this context, that is not the case. For a game that was released nearly 8 years ago, to have bugs that were present at launch is a point of serious concern. The good news is that there are almost no bugs in XCOM today, and none of them are game-breaking. You won't encounter a single bug that will prevent you from playing the game or destroy save files. However, there is still a single, annoyingly common bug that should have been fixed a long time ago. At times, when you order your troops to fire at an enemy, instead of aiming at the enemy, your soldier will aim in a randomly different direction, and then the shot or the laser will leave from your weapon, at times even at a 90-degree angle, and move in an impossible direction, or at worst, not even appear. This does not affect the accuracy of your shot or the effect of the gameplay in any way, but it does break immersion, especially when you consider how strong the world building and immersion normally is. I wouldn't even mention it, if not for how frequent it is. Aside from that though, the experience is very solid. At most, you may encounter a few oddities, and they are always limited to music and sound, such as the occasional sound effect not playing, or the music just disappearing mid-note, but nothing of any serious significance. All in all, your XCOM experience today will be bug-free and without any headache or hassle. I really wish I had more clips of bugs to show you guys today, but oddly enough, when I went looking for them, they just seemed to stop happening. I think my biggest frustration with that bug that causes your soldiers to occasionally shoot in the wrong direction is that it's still present in XCOM 2, meaning that it's persisted between iterations of the game. In conclusion, XCOM is an amazingly well-rounded strategy game. It made waves when it landed, and is still remembered today as a landmark title, and maybe even one of the greatest games in modern history. XCOM is punishing and hard, but instead of being frustrating, it makes the experience feel alive and important. Every action you take carries with it great significance. Every victory makes you feel like celebrating. Every loss makes you mourn. And every time you make a move, you will be well aware of that. If you've never played XCOM before, then rest assured that the buzz and fandom surrounding this title is 100% deserved. I wouldn't say that this XCOM reboot made any huge innovations or broke away from industry standards. However, the XCOM franchise certainly did. There is a very good reason that people compare strategy titles to XCOM. That said, while this specific title didn't do anything revolutionary, it set the standard of quality, depth, replayability, and strategy for the entire industry, and it will never be forgotten. I have personally put nearly 400 hours into XCOM, and I don't regret a single minute of it. If you don't already own it, and you're a fan of strategy games, or even the sci-fi setting, then I can't recommend this game to you enough. Even 8 years after release, the XCOM Enemy Unknown Complete Pack, which includes the base game and the Enemy Within DLC, still sells for $55 Canadian, when not on sale. But you can nab it on special for as low as $11 Canadian. $55 is well worth the price, even today, but if you don't own it at this point, then you may want to wait to pick it up on sale. Alright, so that's all I've got for you today. I want to take a minute to thank you guys if you've made it to the very end of this video. I know these reviews can often be longer than the standard, but I feel as though the extra time is important for covering a game with a level of depth they often deserve. If you've enjoyed the review and you have an opinion on anything you've heard today, agree or disagree, please drop a comment down below, or join the community Discord. You'll find a link for that in the description below. I know there was a huge gap between this review and the last one, but with the holiday season and work, it's been difficult to find the time to actually put this review together. I'm hoping to have the next review out much faster. If you want to see more content like this, and you've enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button and like the video. Until next time, take care and stay safe.